A fun Thursday game. A lot of wide receivers hurt, and we got some things to talk about. It's the Roto Hackers podcast, as you just saw in that graphic. And my name is Judah Boot. I'm here with AJ Herschel, the kid, and it's Jared. And we are the fantasy footballers. No, we're not. We're the Roto Hackers. Sorry. It's been a long time since I actually watched the fantasy footballers. But anyways, we have some stuff to talk about. We are the unauthorized authors of I can't remember what we are. What are we, AJ?
The unauthorized reporters of fantasy football news, information, and entertainment.
Well, that's a lot of stuff.
We've expanded every year. We get bigger and better.
Well, as my air conditioner dies there, that's good. How are you doing, Jared? The stud. I forgot to mention that.
Absolute stud. There's
good. Doing okay.
And we have Sawyer in the chat already. How you doing, Sawyer? He says, "What's the news today?" Well,
perfect segue.
There isn't a ton of news, but before we get to the news, I'd like to get your guys' take on Thursday night's game. Not a bad game. It was fun, right?
Yeah, unless you started AJ Green in a bunch of leagues because you were missing Cortland Sutton and Kenny Galladay and thinking Chris Godwin's probably going to be out and AJ Brown's going to be out. And so I did not want to start AJ Green in that one. But I mean, I had leagues. What's that?
That's it. Some of us had to. I did too.
Right. And I mean, it's not like he didn't get the targets, he got 13 targets, but he nearly had a touchdown. So it was just,
and we talked about how Michael, what's his name? The other Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas, yeah.
Fake Michael Thomas. It looks just like him. Like they're built the same. I know their numbers.
Right.
Every time I saw like those arms grab up and grab that ball, because Michael Thomas did really good. He did a lot better. I was thinking every time I was thinking about the guys. I'm sure there were. I heard about stories of people that drafted that Michael Thomas instead of the other one.
There was a year where he was with the Rams where people in drafts, it was a popular thing for them to throw him out in drafts. And one year somebody did bid like $30 or something on him before they just weren't paying attention. And a lot of times you'd get someone where they would bid a dollar up, like somebody would throw him out for $1 and then somebody would bid an extra $1. So that's the first thing I thought of too. Yeah.
Well, this was the year to have fake Michael Thomas. I mean, he's going to do better this week than real Michael Thomas. Supposedly, we'll get into that. What did you think of the game, AJ?
Well, Nick Chubb is back, which makes a lot more sense, being that he's not facing Baltimore. What does I say? He got 2 touchdowns on 22 carries. I mean, seems like he's getting back into normal Nick Chubb form. I'm a little ticked I didn't start Kareem Hunt in the one league I had him, where I was struggling at wide receiver, and I was like, flex spot, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'm a little bit mad at myself for that. But Boyd got the touchdown I was praying for on Thursday, so I needed that one.
Yeah, Jared and I were going back and forth about the Hunt Chubb split. I do have to concede the Hunt pickup was a good pickup. He looked good now, but you guys have to admit, watching Chubb in the open field, he's just hard to tackle. He's elusive. He's strong.
He's
fast.
Oh yeah.
beast.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
He's not great short area.
Yeah.
He's a rich man CEH.
See, we know this though. Like we got to watch him at Georgia for multiple years, so we had the scouting report coming in. It's just glad that Hunt's not taking away, I don't know, too much of that if you're a Chubb owner, but it
think
seems like
it's-
there could be enough for both of them.
Yeah, I think I talked about it last week, like and a lot of the commentators on the actual games, will say this, like if like the Browns' identity just should be running those two guys and then passing the ball as a complement to that. So if they do that, I think then, both of them are going to be, tremendous fantasy assets. I mean, Kareem Hunt had 86 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns plus, some receiving yards on 10 carries.
Mhm.
So he had 23 points on 10 carries. And then Chubb finished with, 26 or 25.8 on 22 carries, 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, you could start both of them if they'll get that kind of volume, but I think it's going to vary game to game. I don't think it's going to be, I think they're probably going to be somewhere between what you saw versus the Ravens and what you saw versus the Bengals.
Well, we were talking about it, and we looked at the schedule, and the schedule does not look bad. There's 4 games I'm at all worried about for anybody on the team. Where, of course, they have to play the Ravens again. They're going to have to play. I think they're only playing the Steelers once this
Well, that
year?
would be if they play him once. That would mean only once for fantasy. Yeah, they get him 17.
Oh, okay.
17.
Yeah. So they only play the Steelers
That's a bullet
once.
dodged.
They and week 15 and 16 is the sweet New York, the New York duo.
Yeah, well, although I don't know if like the Giants will be like the Giants is a nice matchup. The Jets for rushing purposes might not be a great matchup. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll have to keep an eye on that. But that team, that defense in general, does not seem too bad. Although you're right, they did do okay this last week against who was it?
Buffalo. Yeah, they.
Buffalo.
I mean, they made. I mean, Josh Allen was getting most of the. I think he outrushed Singletary and Moss.
He was
combined.
a leading rusher.
Yeah.
And compared though, like you're always the one, Jared, who says, "Well, the Week 15 matchup is really, really big," and that's the Giants. So at least you get the easier half in New York first.
I do like that. Yeah, I would. Depending on where we are in the season, I would, definitely try to stock up on some Hunt or or Chubb later.
Well, on the other side, and then Odell Beckham back catching long balls. He looked good. There was a few times like he could have had a bigger game. There was a few just off sync with. There was the one where he got pulled for his jersey pulled. That would have been a nice long one. And in general, I'm still not sold on Mayfield. Well, what do you guys think as far as the wide receivers? What do we think about the other receiver there? What's
Jarvis
his name?
Landry.
Yeah, Landry going forward.
Yeah, three targets, 3 receptions, 46 yards for him, and then their free agent signing Austin Hooper had 2 targets in week 1 for 15 yards, 4 targets in week 2, only caught 2 of them for 22 yards. It just doesn't seem like this offense is going to support multiple pass catchers on a week-to-week basis. So I don't know. We'll see. But, it seems like with as much as they're putting into the running game, it's just going to be hard to trust guys week to week. I mean, if Beckham's going to get, the bulk of the targets, then he can, if he and Baker have a semi decent connection, unlike last year, then he can be productive enough. But I don't think for where he was drafted, I think it's going to be difficult for him to be consistent enough to justify that.
Yeah, you know where I like Jarvis Landry? Second half of the year. Last year, people were talking to me and looking at the stats of Jarvis, and they're like, dude, he got 1,000 yards. He got 8 touchdowns. And I say, yeah, all of that came in week 9 through 16 after I traded him away, after all that was done. So guess what good that did for me? It took him 8 weeks to get going. I think he had like one game last year where he got like 150, 160 yards or something, if I remember correctly. He had one game. And then after that, it was just 4 catches, 5 catches, 50 yards, 40 yards, 60 yards. It was just fine. It was just fine. He didn't do really anything major until after he hit week 8. So I think Jarvis, if he's going to get going, I think he's a second half of the year type guy. A little bit like Marvin Jones, I guess I could say. But first half of the year, I'm not feeling him.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I was thinking, I was glad that Beckham didn't get that other touchdown, because I think I may go out and just try to get him everywhere, because they're going to establish that run. And the second half of the year, they have a better, I wouldn't say better, but they have a decent schedule. And I think once they establish the run, it's going to open up. It's going to open up so much for those wide receivers. And once they start getting into a better rhythm, hopefully connecting better between Mayfield and the wide receivers, it could be a really good buying opportunity if you can get Landry dirt cheap and Beckham cheapish. What do you guys think about the other side of the field? What's going on? That's another buy low situation, but I haven't looked at their schedule. What we're looking at, but I wouldn't mind loading up on some Mixon here, because people are going to be panicking on some Mixon.
Yeah, I don't know. I've only got him in I think 2 leagues. One of them's a little $20 league, and I got burned by him last year, by his slow start last year. He finally came on later in the year. Man, I don't know. It's after going through that last year, it's hard for me to want to go out and get him anywhere and trust him. I mean, the Chargers are a pretty good defense. I think Cleveland's defense obviously did a pretty good job against him. I don't know. That one's a tougher sell for me because of how I got burned by him last year.
I don't like Cincinnati's offensive line. I'm going to be entirely honest. It was them and the Jets. And the only reason I drafted Mixon in, I think, the 1 or 2 leagues I have him, is because purely just off of his talent. Because I sure don't trust the Bengals offensive line. And rookie quarterback year 1, I wasn't sure how the offense was going to run. I mean, they put up 30 points on the Browns, to be fair. And Burrow, I mean, he threw 3 touchdowns, but it took him 61 throws to get there. So, I mean, give or take. If this is going to be an air raid offense, that just makes Mixon's value go even lower for me. There's a guy I know who really loves Mixon. I might try to maybe trade him, because the thing that worries me for him is he's got to get Pittsburgh in week 15. And then he's got to get Houston in week 16. And J.J. Watt, I think it was maybe 710 who brought it up last episode. It's hard to punch the ball in from short range facing the Texans' defensive line. So, I mean, Mixon's got some good games in there. He's got, Jacksonville sprinkled in there. He's got Miami sprinkled in there. But in between there, you're playing Pittsburgh twice, Washington. Mixon just is that. I like him less and less the more I think about it.
Yeah.
Looking at that schedule does not make me excited. You're right. Yeah. That does temper my. If I do get him, though, I feel like you can. If he has another bad game next week, you're going to be able to. You might be able to get him for waiver wire fodder. People are going to be so frustrated with him because they paid. Well, the problem is they paid
exactly
first, second round, end of the first. beginning or the second, or where was he? Probably middle of the
He
second,
was
right?
second round. Yeah, he was early
Middle
to
of the
mid
second.
second, like 12 to 15.
Yeah, so it who I'm trying to think who I could entice somebody with. Maybe somebody that, let's see, somebody that people are really excited about that may not pop to, or maybe be somebody early in the season that I think is fool's gold off the waiver wire or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
know.
like a tight end. Like I'd trade Hawkinson for him.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody. Usually, it seems like my experience with when other people have a guy like Mixon is they they want to get rid of him, but they still want like premium value, and so I don't know. And then this year, like I haven't really made any. Trying to think. I made a couple of trades like during the preseason, but the leagues, I don't know if it's this year or the leagues I'm in or what, but it's just like everyone wants, you offer something, fairly reasonable. And then people are like sending you back like, DK Metcalf for Ezekiel Elliott, and so I don't know. Maybe it's just the leagues I'm in this year.
I don't know. I mean, someone tried to trade me something like Travis Kelce for, I don't even know, Jared Cook or something. So I sent them back, hey, I'll give you Marvin Jones for Devontae Adams and Adam Thielen. They immediately rejected that trade, of course. But I'm just like, look, you want to send me garbage trades? I'll send you garbage trades right back.
Right. I do the same thing.
Well, I've been thinking about our trade because I feel, Jared, I feel like that trade it's fascinating how much in play it is last week, this week, as both. It's hard to tell who to start. I mean, I think they're almost like the exact same player.
And that's a lot of I think that's going to be a lot of the problem this year is just like trying to figure out like these are all like seem like okay options. Of course, like lately I've had fewer options because so many guys have been hurt. But yeah, I prefer having last week. I would have preferred to have Gordon because of it wasn't that bad of a matchup and Evans was hurt. This week though, I'm glad to have Mike Evans because it looks like he's healthy. Maybe we'll see. I don't ever trust hamstring injuries because it seems like they can feel fine, but there's probably something still, torn or damaged in there. And then as soon as they run, it's going to happen again. Anyway, I feel better this week about him than Melvin Gordon in Pittsburgh. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm still glad I did the deal because I needed a receiver. But
yeah. Well, let's get right into the news because receivers are definitely part of today's news.
News in the NFL today.
So we're looking at a sit-em for Galladay, which hurts. I have Galladay in one league where I went. This is the league I have Hunt in. I played him, so that's good. I have Galladay and Thomas. Thought I was sitting pretty with some Galladay and Thomas, but not looking that way at the beginning of the year. We got Sam says Chubb versus Hunt, boys.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey Sam, good to see you. So, what do you guys think? We've got so let's name it. We got Galladay, Sutton.
Well,
Thomas.
Sutton, we're not. Well, oh, you're talking about. Yeah, we're not sure about. Yeah, Thomas and Sutton. Yeah, Thomas and Sutton, we're not sure about. Galladay's definitely out.
AJ Brown.
AJ Brown's definitely out. Chris Godwin is looking doubtful.
Yeah, he's doubtful.
And then Thomas and Sutton are both questionable, but I think Thomas is probably on the doubtful side of questionable.
Devontae Parker is also questionable heading into the day too.
That's right. Day to day, I think they said.
Something like that, yeah.
So what are some options out there for wide receivers? Because we did see that Corey, what's his name? Corey
Davis.
Of all
Davis
people,
is-
of all people.
Yeah.
he's getting a lot of targets and sort of came in for well, not came in, but got the attention last week with AJ Brown out. Would Corey Davis be a nice pivot to some of these wide receivers?
I mean, it's Jacksonville. I mean, the only thing is, will the Titans even have to throw the ball 5 times, or is Derrick Henry just gonna steamroll them for the entire game? That I forget who it was. If it was, I don't know. It was one of the fantasy analysts said the over under for Derrick Henry was like 118.5 versus the Jaguars for a prop bet or something like that. I mean, and they had never seen it that high at 118 yards. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think Corey Davis is is potentially a worthwhile plug and play. But it could still be entirely the Derrick Henry show.
Could be. Yeah. What do you think, AJ?
I think it's interesting how a 16-14 game included a quarterback who threw over 40 passes and a running back who ran the ball, 30 times. I don't know what the Titans did to the Broncos offense, but they just kind of broke football, I guess, with the amount of plays they had. I don't know what it was, but as many times, I think Jacksonville is always going to be a Henry game from probably now to the end of time. It'll be Jacksonville as a Henry game. But I think Davis is interesting as a flex play in deeper leagues, especially in leagues now when you're playing like two flex spot leagues, 2 wide receiver, running back, tight end flex spots. I think he's not a bad play if you've been hampered by injuries. I mean, he got 7 catches last game. The one worry is there's a high chance he could bomb, not because of him, but because Henry's just going to steal the show. But I think he's a worthwhile flex play in deeper leagues.
Would either of you go out? I noticed that Deshaun Jackson is on the waiver wire in a couple of my leagues. Would either of you go out and get Djax for a replacement here for any of these wide receivers?
I mean, he's a dice roll. I liked him better in week 1 against Washington, even though he didn't really do much of anything. You're starting him hoping that he's going to get behind the secondary, at least once. There's other guys that I would probably feel better about maybe giving a start, like Scotty Miller, if it looks like Chris Godwin's going to be out. Maybe Paris Campbell for the Colts against the Vikings, who the Packers spread the ball around really well in their passing offense in week 1 against the Vikings. Campbell had 9 targets and sort of quietly 11 points on 71 yards, 6 catches. I guess maybe had a carry or something there too. So, I think it's more difficult for people to trust him because there's T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman, and Paris Campbell. So it's, is there really a clear number 1 or number 2 in there? Just looking to see who else is out there. So a couple of those guys would maybe be more attractive options for me.
What do you think, JJ?
Philadelphia is getting Aaron Donald, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all for the run or pass game. We watched last week, Philadelphia turn it over 3 times, and Carson Wentz gets sacked 8 times to Washington, to the football team. And I don't like them having to play the Rams. So I just don't like Philadelphia in general this week. That's just a general, I'm low on Philadelphia. I'm not expecting a big game from Sanders or Rager or Djax or anyone. I have a league where I might have to start Russell Gage, and I think he could do better than Deshaun Jackson because Ryan might throw it 40 times against the Cowboys, for crying out loud. That's probably going to be a shootout. So I mean, Jackson, it's less about Jackson and more about I don't like Philly playing the Rams.
Another guy I was just looking at here is looks like 49ers rookie wide receiver Brandon Ayuk is going to play this week.
Interesting.
He's only 33% rostered, and he gets the Jets defense that Josh Allen carved up last week to Stephon Diggs and John Brown. So I think he's potentially another good plug-in this week.
Well, so since the big change in Yahoo from, I think recently, right? It was a couple years ago, they changed to the flex involving the tight end. Would we be looking at maybe a tight end in the flex with so many tight ends on the waiver wire that are doable? And or maybe we should just talk about tight end, because also in the news is my man Kittle is out for the week with that hyperextended knee. Might be like a patellar, or not a patellar. What is that? Not the really bad
meniscus
injury. Is it the meniscus? Maybe.
I don't know.
Something got strained there, and it looks like it could be out for. Well, he's definitely out this week. So, are you guys going out and getting old man? What's his name? Jordan
Reed.
Jordan Reed. Yeah, Jordan Reed. Brittle man Jordan Reed, who does, when he plays well. If he's healthy, tends to play well. What do you guys think about Logan Thomas, about Jordan Reed, about some of these iffy tight ends that could do well this year, and you can put them in your flex?
See, I like Logan Thomas less as a flex play, but more of me. I have the Gronk and Ebron experiment where I really wish I had a better tight end in my starting position. I got stuck in one of those leagues. I like Logan Thomas. I do like him, especially in a Washington team that's really doesn't have anything in the receiving game outside of Score and McLaurin. And I mean, what was it? He got, I think, 8 targets last game, first game of the year. Everyone's raving about him in football team practice. So I like Logan Thomas. I think I actually like having him on a bench if I could. If I had like Austin Hooper or something, I wasn't huge on him. I like Thomas. Reed, guess how many places I have Kittle? 0. I don't like that I have 0 of Kittle, but it is what it is. People just sniped him before I could get to him. So I'm not really that concerned about it. And even with Reed, it's like there's other tight ends out there in some leagues that I'd rather have, like Logan Thomas if he's still available. But I'm not super high on Reed. And even if he does well, I think this is a 1-week thing.
Yeah, I like Logan Thomas, not necessarily as a flex. I mean, maybe as if Kittle's out against that Arizona defense, it's kind of hard to know how much they improved against tight ends in the offseason. I mean, last week, Kittle got hurt, and it's hard to tell from one game, but they were so bad against them last year, and I could see him playing well again. Yeah, as a flex, I started. I think I had a league last week where I had Anderson at tight end, and then it was one of those leagues where Galladay was out, Sutton was going to be out, some other receiver was going to be out, and so I did end up starting Hawkinson as a flex. That's not something I really want to do regularly. Start any other tight end as a flex. It's normally just, unless you've got like Kelsey and Mark Andrews both or something like that. Usually you're just better off going with a wide receiver or something. And I think there's just too many guys this week that offer, more upside and more potential targets. Another guy, is Quintez Cephas for the Lions with Galladay out. He didn't put up much of anything. He basically had like an AJ
targets. Right?
Yeah, he had an AJ Green game. He had an AJ Green game where he had 10 targets, but only 3 catches for 43 yards. So
Yeah.
he only had, like 5 point something fantasy points. He's a rookie. But they're playing in Green Bay, and he went to Wisconsin to college. Maybe he'll blow up for a good feel good story there. I don't know, but I mean, he's a rookie. I don't really know anything about him other than he's I imagine probably going to be starting on the outside again. And then I imagine, let's see what Amendola had, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 81 yards last week, no touchdown. He might be the safer play, because he's that slot guy. He's 3% rostered, so Amendola is going to be out there. I mean, Amendola is kind of like the James White of receivers. He's going to catch a bunch of little balls underneath. He probably won't get a touchdown, but he can definitely get you like 10, 11 points. So.
Well, that's good analysis for looking at what to do with tight end and obviously what you're talking about, grabbing some wide receivers. What about running backs? This is kind of a weird time for running backs as we have news that some guys are in, some guys that we thought would not be, some guys are out that we had no idea. So talking about specifically Connor being in, he's completely healthy apparently now. I don't know. He has no designation.
James Conner's never completely healthy. James Conner is just, I don't know. He's
perpetually injured.
Yeah. Or at best, he's pre-injured.
I like that, pre-injured. I'm firing him up. I think he could have a huge game. Who are they playing again? Denver. Yeah, I think he'll do fine.
If he stays in for the game and stays healthy and doesn't, lose a fair amount to Snell, I'll probably start him. I'll roll the dice again, I guess. Derrick Henry did well, in week 1 against the Broncos. Didn't have a touchdown, but he had a lot of carries and a lot of yards. Yeah, I mean, if you drafted James Conner, you took him no later than the 4th round, or in auctions, you paid $20 to $25 for him. So he's probably your flex guy, at the very least. So yeah, I'll probably be starting him again and just dreading every moment of that game.
What do you like out over there, AJ? What do you think?
I don't know. It's just guess how many leagues I got Connor in? Zero. That now was intentional. I didn't get any of him, and I didn't get any of Le'Veon because I didn't trust either of them. Connor because injury, Le'Veon because the Jets. I don't think I need to say anything more about that. So I mean, it really just depends, I think, on what kind of situation you're in, and what your bench players are. Obviously, if Connor's worth a start. Denver's not the easiest defense to run on. Granted, Henry got 100 yards, but he had to rush it 31 times to get there. Connor makes me nervous. I'll just say that. Connor makes me very nervous. And if I've got someone like Chark who I can put in instead, I'm probably more even though Chark only got 3 catches, I'm probably a little more confident with him there and knowing that he's got a better chance of not only scoring but playing a full game than I am James Conner lasting a full game against Bradley Chubb and the Broncos.
Well, in the same game, we have Lindsey, who Philip Lindsey is somebody who I think people were thinking would be just like Hunt and get in and get a lot of play. And now he is out early so early in the week, they're saying he's got turf toe, which if anybody has been a AJ Green enthusiast at any point knows that turf toe is a lot worse than it sounds.
Devontae Adams last year. I think that was his injury, was turf toe.
That's right. It can take you out for multiple weeks. And so what does this mean for Gordon going forward? are we looking at maybe some Freeman action here?
I don't know about the Royce Freeman so much, but Melvin Gordon. You know when I like Melvin Gordon? Next week against Tampa, not this week against Pittsburgh.
I
Pittsburgh
don't
is the
know.
team.
I think Tampa has a better line than Pittsburgh.
Even if they have a better defensive line, I mean, this is the team that just held Saquon to 6 yards rushing on 15 carries, which, yeah, is a combination of the Giants' line being mediocre, but that's a line I don't want to run into. I mean, and unfortunately, like the other guys out, this would be a prime rushing day, like even his next 3 games for Gordon, but he gets Pittsburgh, Tampa, and Jets. Who aren't the easiest teams in the league to run on. I mean, obviously the difficulty goes down in my opinion with each one, but that's not the best schedule to have. So I like Gordon. I think he's an interesting flex play. Maybe he snipes a late game touchdown, but if Sutton's healthy, that worries me for his statistics. If Judy's still going to be there, Noah Fant could probably vulture a touchdown. So I'm not as optimistic on Gordon as I could be. His schedule is not very running back friendly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe Gordon is a if you have an opportunity to try to sell high on him, which I mean I know it's almost it's Saturday now, but I don't know how much time Lindsey's going to miss. He's probably going to be back sooner rather than later. And then Gordon's got, I think, a couple of tough matchups coming up. And then once Lindsey comes back, I think, it's going to be maybe not an even split, but Lindsey's going to get a lot of touches. They play Buffalo in week 15. Buffalo's a good defense. So, yeah, I would not mind selling high on Melvin Gordon.
I don't know if it would be high, though. He had, 15 points off of like 20 carries?
Yeah, but I mean, it might be high relatively. He had, basically. I mean, it might be high relatively speaking, because I'm saying it may only go down, may only go down from here.
Well, I'm looking at their schedule now. After that murders row of Steelers, Broncos, Jets, Patriots, Dolphins, Chiefs.
Patriots always a tough rush defense. The Chiefs, you run the risk of falling behind and then just having to pass. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of his schedule, which I mean, I took him in, I don't know, maybe 20% or so of my leagues because I could get him for like $15, as a 4th running back or something. But I'm not super high on him for the season.
Yeah, I'm gonna trust in his skill, but I'm like you guys, not looking. It's like not optimistic. I'm tampering my expectations. I don't think he's gonna do zip. I think especially with Lindsey out, I think he's a great pass catching back, and in space can do some damage. So I'm just hoping that wins out. I'm gonna put him in after last week. I'm just gonna have to put him in a lot of places. So I'm thinking that we're just hoping in his skill. He's a skilled player. Now with that murders row, he may get not murdered, but injured, especially looking at that. I mean, the Steelers have never been easy on their opponents when it comes to not, being gentle. They've never been gentle. So
that was the most roundabout way to say that the Steelers are a tough defense.
No, I'm not just talking about being a tough defense. I mean, they like to hurt people, So we'll see. Hope he stays healthy. Now we have looks like the comment section's blowing up. We got Thomas H that I drafted. This is back when we were talking about AJ Brown. Yeah, not looking so good. Sam I can't remember. I'm sorry, Sam. Remind us who you liked, who the yes was for. Thomas H says Keenan Allen versus the Chiefs or Deontay Johnson versus Denver. Half point PPR. That's an interesting one. I think I would probably go Keenan Allen because I just don't really know what's going on with that Steelers offense, especially their passing game right now. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I like Keenan. I mean, Keenan's, well, I would say he's the number one. I mean, Mike Williams, I think, got more targets. Hunter Henry was pretty involved, but they paid Keenan Allen a ton of money. So I think he's still their number one. Deontay, he's it's kind of I guess maybe the two, but you got Juju, you've got Washington, you've got Deontay, you've got Eric Ebron. They like to throw the running backs.
Yeah.
So I like Deontay, and he was a popular like late round ad because of the way he finished the season last year. But that was sort of without Big Ben, and looks, at least from the one game sample size we have, like the Big Ben, Juju love affair is back in full force, and he's kind of then sprinkling passes around to other people. So I would probably have to go with Keenan.
Yeah, this is easy Keenan Allen for me. As much as he was weird in week 1 with 4 catches on 8 targets, I think it was, he's still technically the number one. And same thing, just because you got a lot of catches from Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges does not mean you will get a lot of catches from Ben Roethlisberger, who's looked a lot more patient, I thought, behind the line than he normally was in game 1. But I'd still go Keenan Allen. As much as Kansas City is a tough defense, I think I like Deontay less with so many weapons. Judah Buddha, what do you think about this one?
I think
Sorry.
there he is.
There you go.
Yeah, I told you at the beginning, but sorry, I had to step out there.
Yeah, you good.
Much water, but I like Keenan Allen.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the next question.
Ooh.
Taylor or Kenyon Drake, standard scoring MathQuest, asking for a pretty difficult decision here. I think that personally, I am not a huge Jonathan Taylor enthusiast, but Kenyon Drake is not looking great. What do you guys think?
I really need Kenyon to do what he did last year. That'd be so nice if he could do that on a couple of my teams, but I'm not overly confident that's going to happen because the Cardinals get the football team defense. And yes, I will say the football team as many times as I can in this episode, but Arizona gets the football team defense this week. And I mean, their offensive line is leagues better than Philadelphia's injury-riddled line was last week, but Jonathan Taylor and the Colts don't have the worst matchup in the world with the Vikings, who were really mediocre, I thought, last week against the Packers. Granted, that was more for Devontae Adams, but with the good Colts offensive line, as much as they're getting people involved in Indianapolis, I'm probably more inclined to go Jonathan Taylor, actually, which I did not think I would be saying this week.
Yeah, same for me. I like both okay. I mean, Washington did well against the run last week. Miles Sanders was out, and it's tough to, again, to go off of one game. But Kenyon Drake last year was pretty up or down. I think, Jonathan Taylor is going to be the starter in Indy. Last week, I mean, that was just a weird game. I don't know how the Colts are going to look compared to it, but that's going to be their identity. Is they're going to, I think, kind of want to be like Cleveland a little bit and run the ball. I think it may be a little tougher now since they lost Mac. I mean, because I think Mac Taylor was going to be sort of their Chubb Hunt in a different way. But they're still going to involve Hines, and they'll add in I think Jonathan Wilkerson.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll add him in some, but I think they're going to look to establish that run, and I like Taylor better this week.
Well, I am tempted to be really down on Jonathan Taylor. I did go back and watch the tape, however, and the dude's not bad. He's strong and fast. I guess, though, that I have to stick with my love of Nyheim Hines, man, and I think that they could go with the veteran, now a veteran, I guess. This is his third year in the league, and he was also showing quite a bit of skill and really caught the eye of Rivers last week. Could this be with them both getting a lot of looks, a lot of catches, maybe touchdowns, could this be a sweet year to own Nyheim Hines?
I think so. I mean, whenever I look at two running backs starting to click well together, my brain immediately goes to Ingram Kamara, which I think was probably the best and definitely most fantasy productive running back duo when they were at their peak. Both of them getting over 10 points a game, with Kamara being involved in the pass game more and Ingram getting more of the goal line touches. I thought that was a really good relationship for that 1 year. I think they both had over 1,000 all-purpose yards. I think that could happen with Taylor maybe being the main ground attack and Hines being the guy through the air as much. I like having both of them. I don't know if Hines is as much of a stardom this week as more if he is a bench play. But, I mean, like we said, people are desperate this week because wide receivers are getting injured. Running backs are going out too. I think he's an interesting flex play, and I like him for later down the line so far.
Are you guys able to get him any waiver wires last week?
Yeah, I picked him up in 3 or 4, although I did end up prioritizing Malcolm Brown over him. I think it was right. Maybe it was Tuesday night or sometime I'd seen like Reich talking about, Taylor's going to be the starter. Hines is still going to be a guy who's not just third down, but he'll get mixed in some, but then we're going to use Jonathan Wilkes some too. And so then when he started bringing up a third guy, I'm like, all right, well, if we're doing 3 guys and, Hines is number 2 out of those 3, then I'm going to go with the Rams, where Malcolm Brown is one of 3, but he might continue to be number 1 out of the 3. So I ended up getting Malcolm Brown in about twice as many leagues as Hines.
Yeah, I kind of got out bid for Hines in either waivers, people had higher priority, or somebody bid $10 more than me, Judah Buddha, to get Nyheim Hines. So I was not that fortunate to get as many shares. I don't think I have any shares of him, actually, unfortunately.
So embarrassing for me. I had him on every league, and then I had to go out and buy him in every league.
Do you ever go look?
Fair. Oh,
I did this with basketball season. Where do you ever go and look and see like what your bid was compared to the next highest bid to see like if you overpaid?
Oh yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
But I'm saying, did you go look at Hines specifically to see like what the next highest? Yeah.
Oh no, because I knew I probably overbid for him. We had one guy in our league pay $100 fab dollars. Free agent, what is it called? Free agent acquisition budget. Fab $100. That's all you get. You get $100. He paid $100 for Malcolm Brown.
Wow.
As a he's actually been on our show a couple times, but he was commented. So he's
a Rams fan.
No,
right?
As a Henderson owner, I put in the message board, on the message board. I said, "Come see me when Henderson's starting next week. You got $100 Malcolm Brown on your bench." I really do believe that you guys, or not you guys necessarily, but everybody is going way too high on Malcolm Brown when they've got Henderson coming on. They've got, what's his name, Kelly? No. Who's the other? Who's the
Cam Akers.
Akers? They have Akers coming on. Malcolm Brown is going to be an afterthought by the middle of the season.
I mean, I only paid what $5 for him, so I mean, unless anyone really blows out, I'm okay with that.
Definitely not $100.
Yeah,
I mean, all my leagues are, except for our listener league, it's just waiver priority, and so I used my first or second priority on him in places, but it was either that or Hines or hold it. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen with the Rams situation, but we'll see.
Okay. Good call. Well, we have we got a lot of questions here. Let's see. Thomas H says, would you take a chance
this
on
one's
CD?
easy for me.
Or would you over Robert Woods? No, heck no.
No. Robert Woods.
What do you think? What do you guys think? Obviously, AJ, you think no way. Jared, what do you think? Oh, wait. What were you
good, Jared, go ahead.
I don't think it's like quite as crazy as you guys think it is. Gosh. It would still be hard for me to pull that trigger, but as bad, and Thomas H with his Falcons repping his Falcons fan
respect
avatar there. I'm sure knows this too. Like the Falcons defense just looks so bad. So I could see CeeDee Lamb, getting a fair amount of points. Gosh, I don't know. I think it's reasonable. I just don't know that. I don't know that Robert Woods is going to get shut down. I don't know that CeeDee Lamb is going to blow up. So I guess I would give a slight edge to Woods still as being, kind of the primary target in that offense. Whereas, with CeeDee, they're going to score points, but you run the risk of, Amari getting 15 targets and, a couple of long balls going to Gallup and Ezekiel Elliott. So I don't think it's as much of a lock that he's going to get targets. I mean, everybody could score. Everybody for the Cowboys could score against Atlanta. But I would like CeeDee better if he was like a clear number 2 as opposed to, one of 3. So I would still go with Woods, but I don't think it's crazy to entertain that idea.
Yeah, for me, I'm a fan of consistency, so that's probably why it seemed so. Why I was like, no, very much immediately, because Robert Woods will get 8 catches a game on 10 targets and not score a touchdown. The thing that really makes this bigger for me is that CeeDee is a boomer bust touchdown play, obviously, but Robert Woods is consistent in PPR and he always gets catches, and he just signed, I think, like a $58 million extension today, I think. Or yesterday. I like Robert Woods just of how consistent he is, and that's really nice just to put him as my wide receiver 2 and have the confidence to know he'll be fine and get 15 points basically in PPR. So yeah, I probably made it seem a little bit worse than it actually was about choosing CeeDee over Woods, but it's less about the Falcons backfield and just I love Woods' consistency, and that's why I put him over CeeDee Lamb.
And this is a full point PPR, so it may be that that he just gets at least peppered with some with throws. However, Cooper is kind of banged up, isn't he?
I'm not sure. Let me see.
I think he's healthy as far as his designation. But
I remember there was some question during practice this week.
He had some like hammy problems or something.
He's got a bruised foot.
Oh, okay.
So that could make it interesting.
True.
There's
one other thing I'd like to bring up. Seattle's back line is terrible as well. They have Darius Slay, and that's about it. Sorry, that's Seattle. Philadelphia. My gosh, why did I say Seattle? Yeah, Philadelphia. Okay. Their back line is garbage as well.
Yeah, it's not a great defense.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what Darius Slay does this year, but I think he was kind of starting to get to that point of his career where he was more of a name than, a shutdown corner, even like late last year. So that doesn't scare me as much as it would have a year or two ago.
Well, we got a couple more questions. Well, we got a lot more questions here. We got Steven Drakes. Thank you for tuning in, Steven. How do you feel about Scotty Miller? Hey, yeah, that's a good question. We've got, it looks like a full go for Evans, but not so much for our man. Can't think of his name. Godwin. That's right. Godwin, who I think we've sort of been up and down on, but we thought that he would be doing better than Evans at this point, and it looks like Scotty Miller is kind of stepping in and getting some catches. I think he had like 10 targets last week.
Or 6. He got 6 targets, 5, 6, and 73.
Okay. I think he's going to get more this week. What do you think, Jared?
Yeah, I like Scotty Miller this week. I think
you mentioned him earlier.
Yeah. Especially with Godwin looking doubtful. If Godwin plays, that probably changes it a little bit for me. But Brady's always loved that sort of third slot receiver type guy. It doesn't look like, from what we saw in week 1, like, Gronk is gonna be back to playing at the level and the number of snaps of the Gronk of old. So, I could very much see him going to Scotty Miller a good bit. The only downside would be, it's just so easy to run on Carolina. Does it become a Rojo Leonard Fournette?
You think this is a Rojo Fournette game?
I mean, if it's
Fournette breakout,
it could be, and Fournette's another guy that, like, if I could go out and get him cheap, he's somebody that I wouldn't mind adding this week, because I still just don't trust that it's going to be Rojo for the season. Maybe he doesn't lose, I think he still factors in somewhat, but if you could buy low on Fournette, now might be a good time.
What do you think, AJ?
I like him as a bench stash in bigger leagues right now, because, granted, if Godwin and Evans are just going to keep switching places in and out, and he's going to be the only consistent one, that could mean big things for his fantasy value. I think he's very interesting to me, and I know someone in our comment section had brought him up a couple weeks ago, that Brady had been liking him in practice. Yeah. So I think he's very interesting to me. I don't know if he's a stardom this week. I don't think he's a stardom this week, but I like him as a bench stash and just keep an eye on him for another week. At this point, he's gone from a watch list player to a, yes, you earned a spot on my bench right now. That's how interesting he is.
But if Godwin's out, if you don't think it's going to be Scotty Miller, are you smashing the Gronk button or what?
I like more Mike Evans and also Rojo as well, to some extent. And then for me, I stock up on wide receivers. So, like, for me, I've got Darius Slayton some places. I've got I was able to snag Cooper Kupp in a couple places. So it really just depends on what wide receivers you already have. And even, like, I started Boyd in one league, which didn't turn out too bad for me. So it kind of just depends on who I've got where. I think he's interesting, maybe a deeper two flex stardom for me.
I'm giving him a hard look where I've got sheesh. Who's on my I've got Kittle. Oh man. Kittle is in my IR. I've got Galladay. So right now I've got Christian Kirk and Djax in my wide receiver slots.
Yay.
Giving him a hard look there. Well, we also have conversation. Are you starting Miles Sanders? Speaking of we've talked a lot about Philly today. What do you think? Miles Sanders seems to be healthy. Throw him in there.
He says he feels 100%.
As Jared says with a smirk.
Yeah. Like I said, hamstring injuries worry me. They seem to linger. They seem to be okay for a week and then pop back up. I wonder what our hamstring evaluation technology is. I assume that's just an MRI, nothing much really beyond that in terms of being able to look into it. But it just seems like we don't have a great way of judging it because players just constantly have a hard time getting over that. So I just wonder, with my complete lack of medical knowledge, if if it's just possible to have little micro tears in there that you don't really show up and then pop back up. All that said, I mean, I paid $40 to $45 usually for my Miles Sanders in auction leagues and drafted him as a second round pick in snake drafts. So yeah, I mean, when says he's healthy, he's going. So I don't know how much confidence I'm starting him with, but I'm starting him and crossing my fingers.
Yeah, I think honestly, he worries me a lot this week at starting Miles Sanders with confidence. Not with confidence, no, but I'm starting him. It's just Philadelphia's offensive line was terrible last week. They were just absolutely atrocious. And Philadelphia didn't do a very good job, I thought, of running the football. I mean, Boston Scott got in what he could, but I didn't think he could do much behind that terrible offensive line. They get the Rams this week, and like I said, that does not make me very excited because you've got Aaron Donald and company to face. So I'm starting him because he's a good player, and Zeke was able to get yards and a touchdown off of him behind a better O-line. I'm starting him, but not with confidence this week. Less has to do with him, though, and the injury, and more with Philadelphia and their offensive line injuries. So I'm starting him, but yeah, same thing, crossing my fingers.
Well, I think he could. The problem is he's just so skilled, and I'm not sure. I don't want him to be on my bench on his. I don't want him to be on my bench on his breakout, week, which may be this week. So I'm definitely. I kind of with you guys. I don't have him anywhere, but if I did, I'd put him in, and it's kind of like with Gordon, hoping for the best. He's so skilled. Ben says, "Cha cha cha, baby, nice to see you, Ben." And Stephen Drake has another question. Really appreciate you watching, man. The last question: would you start Herndon because Crowder? Oh yeah, it does look like Crowder is suffering.
Interesting.
I think it's another hammy. What do you guys think?
I just have a better option pretty much everywhere than Herndon. I don't really trust him against San Francisco. I don't think it's a terrible play. Let's see. Last week, I think he got solid targets last week, if I remember right. 7 targets, 6 receptions, only 37 yards. And I think it might be a similar thing again this week where he gets plenty of targets. Maybe he gets 8 or 9 targets and some catches. Is he really going to get that many yards? Is he really going to get a touchdown? So, I have a lot of Mark Andrews. I do have places that I'm having to fill a spot because of Kittle being out. But even then I'm, plugging in with somebody like Hawkinson or Logan Thomas, even like we talked about. So Kittle, not Kittle, Herndon is not really an ideal play for me this week. If you're desperate enough, sure. But
I mean, the Jets have got to throw to someone, right? That's probably my thing is they've got to Darnold's going to have to throw the ball to someone. But he might be seeing ghosts again this just entire year in general. I think that I think it depends partially on who your other tight end is, who your other tight end in your spot is, or maybe he's a flex spot play. But I think he's a risky tight end play. But compared, especially in like 12-team leagues where you might have gotten stuck with Gronk like me, I think he's probably worth a shot, probably because they do not have anyone other than Brashad Perriman, and that's not comforting for me. So I think he's a risky, hope for the best type play this week.
Okay, well, going a little bit more around the question bank, we've got Ben coming back with another question. Flex question for you guys: Djax or Demarcus Robinson, a standard league non PPR. What do you guys think?
Yikes. Jared, you take this one first. I need to think through this for a second.
I'd probably Djax in that situation because you just never know with the Rams, like, you know, who it's going to. I mean, DeMarcus very nearly had a touchdown in week 1. You know, he just
Wait, you mean Chiefs? Do you mean the Chiefs? Rams.
What did I say?
You said Rams.
Well, the Djax is playing the Rams, right? And then
right. You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
So Djax is playing the Rams. Demarcus Robinson, you know, nearly had a touchdown last week. He still had 6 targets, but he only caught 3 for 20 yards. He nearly had that. I think is the opening touchdown, and I think they ruled it a touchdown, but you know, they saw that he didn't hold on to the ball to the ground. So it's always possible. Anybody in the Chiefs offense, you know, you always have the possibility of, you know, them having a bomb touchdown or something. But I think you just kind of have to go with what might be more likely to happen. And I think, you know, with Djax being a starter, you know, like one of the clear top couple of options there, I would go with him. You know, I mean, Philadelphia, they're going to probably lean more on the run and lean on those tight ends, but I think you still got to go with the guy who's maybe the second option or first option, maybe in terms of receivers versus the guy who's the maybe third or fourth, fifth option, you know?
Yeah, I agree here. Deshaun Jackson, Philadelphia's got to throw to someone. And as good as the Chiefs are being, and I think it was Colin Cowherd who said Patrick Mahomes is becoming even scarier because he's gone from a gunslinger to a smart, accurate gunslinger, which is even scarier. And yeah, Demarcus Robinson did have, I think it was even 2 touchdown opportunities. I think he had another missed one in the end zone later in the game. But I think this is going to I would go Djax as well. I'd go to Deshaun Jackson, especially since the Chiefs, they've got the Chargers this week. So toss up who gets the ball there. It could be Hill, it could be Watkins, it could be Kelsey, it could be Mahomes himself. Like you said, it's 5th option of the offense. So I'd go Deshaun Jackson here.
Okay, well, we've got some questions are coming in hot. We've got Ray Gibson saying, if Godwin is out, should I start Fuller or hit the waiver wire? I think Fuller may be a good option. We saw him do a little bit last year. He's healthy. While he's healthy, get as much as you can out of him. What do you guys think?
Well, the only downside is he's playing the Ravens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I mean they shut OBJ down. I don't know. It would kind of depend on what your options are on the waiver wire, or if you have anybody else on your bench. I guess without really knowing what your other options are, you know, even in a tough spot, Fuller may be your best option, but it would kind of depend on what your others are.
What do you think, AJ?
Will Fuller, as allergic as I was to him drafting him, I'm actually thinking he's a nice, decent stardom for one reason and one reason only. there is no one else to throw to in that Houston offense. I'm sorry. After watching the last game, I think Cobb dropped a pass. Brandon Cooks did nothing. And I mean, David Johnson is the second best receiver on the entire team. So I like Fuller more out of necessity than anything, especially with receivers going down. Even Ruggs is questionable this week too. I like Fuller as a flex play if you're hurting at wide receiver. I wouldn't hit the waiver wire because there's not much on the waiver wire that I feel is confident about. Look, you probably got like 3 more weeks out of Will Fuller before he runs out of gas, and there is no one else that Deshaun Watson's throwing to. I probably more garbage time points than anything. He might be sitting at 3.2 for 3 quarters, but I would go Fuller here. I would not hit the waiver wire.
I could see a long bomb to Fuller
Mhm.
in garbage time. Easy. You get
Yeah.
a touchdown and quite a bit of yards with just one play. That could happen easily with Fuller. However, would you do Fuller or Valdez Scantling, who is probably on the waiver wire?
Fuller.
Yeah, I don't know with MVS. Like, is he going to get 6 targets a week? Is it going to be Alan Lazard more? Are they going to run more on that? Yeah, I just like Fuller for the volume.
Yeah, same. Especially, and I mean, even looking at the what was that? I think even looking at the targets from last week with versus Kansas City, the only other person who got 5 or more was Cooks, and he dropped, I think, at least 2 of those. So, yeah, Fuller is the easy play for me.
He follows up. Ray, thanks for tuning in. By the way, he says if Scott, what about Scotty Miller? He's got Scotty Miller.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. I like him if Chris Godwin's out, but the only thing that kind of scares me a little bit is the potential that they're just going to run the ball down Tampa's throat all game. I still like him to get a fair number of targets. I think he's the safer play. So I think if you're not, like, if it's projected to be a close game with you and your opponent, or you're favored, I think he's a good safe play. Because I just can't see, like, I can't see Will Fuller like blowing up against Baltimore, really. I think he's the safer play, but if you really need to chase points and you just have to gamble on Fuller, then maybe you go with that.
As much as I hate saying this, I'd probably roll the dice with Fuller here as well. I mean, both of them are a dice roll, but Fuller's got a little.
You've come full circle, my friend.
Okay, yes. Okay, it was after watching that Chiefs game though, and realizing there is no one else for Deshaun to throw to. I mean,
first week though, come on.
I know it's first week. Scotty Miller could do really, really well, and I could completely eat crow on this. But I think probably Fuller. But I'm the guy who picks safe picks. Y'all know this. I don't chase points typically in fantasy matchups. I go for who I know is probably going to be better. So I would go Fuller, even though he's got the tougher matchup. And to be fair, I'd like to apologize to the Houston Texans from the NFL scheduling committee because they just get messed up in the first half of the year. They get Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Tennessee and Green Bay coming up in 4 out of the next 6 weeks.
Yikes. Well, Ben says, yo, guys. Hey, Ben, glad to have you back. He's a Lister League alum at this point.
Hey,
D-Jack.
We did this.
We did this question.
Oh, we did this question.
Yep.
Wait, sorry, I hit the wrong one. Oh, he says, thanks. I was leaning Jacks too.
Yeah.
All right. So next we have, where are we? You guys help me here.
We're right there. Yep.
Go with Thomas H saying, so I came out of our auction draft thinking I'm really good on depth, but now he's not thinking so much. Are you guys feeling the same thing, that you wish you had gone with top tier players, more elite players?
See, I paid up in our auction draft. I got Devontae Adams, Adam Thielen, and Kenyon Drake. And in my flex spot, I mean, I'm starting Gordon, so but I still got Fant and Cooper Cup. So I'm top heavy for sure. I'm going to be hurting when it comes to bye weeks. But as far as my starting lineup is, I'm actually pretty happy with it.
I don't know. We'll see. I kind of did the same thing. I mean, I paid for Kamara, for Miles Sanders, for DeAndre Hopkins, and then to a lesser extent to Mark Andrews. And then as Thomas H pointed out last week, I just plucked all those running backs off the waiver wire of Benny Snell, James Robinson, Malcolm Brown. So I feel pretty good about running back. Oh, and Lindsey too, Philip Lindsay. I forgot to have him. So I feel pretty good about running back. Oddly enough, like the thing that I guess kind of worries me a little bit in this league is my receiver depth. Because it's funny because everywhere else, every other league, I just have umpteen receivers, and most of them are all kind of around the same level. And who do I start each week? But with this league, it's just, I mean, it's DeAndre and DK Metcalf and not much beyond them. At first I was regretting taking DeAndre for that much. I got him because he was a little bit of more of a value, I think, in our league. Let's see what I was going back to see if I could look and see what I actually paid for him. So in this league, I paid 37. So he wasn't really
not bad.
Cheaper, but then after week 1, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's not so bad after all, after his week 1 performance. So it does worry me a little bit, my depth at wide receiver, because like I've got DK Metcalf and he's playing the Patriots this week. I never really like starting anyone against the Patriots because they usually find a way to limit the main guys. But overall, I feel pretty good about my draft strategy in our league.
What about you, Judah? You and I are facing off in probably the primetime matchup in our league this week. How are you feeling?
Whoa, we call it the primetime matchup.
Hey, it's the projections at 52-48. It's looking like this. It's going to be close.
Yeah, I'm it's always nice to have Lamar Jackson, not Deshaun.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have Lamar Jackson going into a tough matchup. I feel like Lamar Jackson, Ridley, and Kelsey, I feel pretty good about that. So there's high up. We'll say that there's a high upside there. But
yeah, you're the high upside team.
Speaking of Lamar Jackson, Sukan C says, start Hollywood Brown or Corey Davis, half PPR. I would say for sure start Hollywood, man. It's just the upside is the ceiling. There is no ceiling. The downside, the floor, probably a little higher with Davis since he'll be catching some. He'll get some of that half-point PPR action. But, man, I would hate to have Hollywood on my bench when Lamar is just chucking it to his receivers. Now, Hollywood's not always his main guy. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I like Hollywood against Houston. I mean, Houston got burned a lot last year. They got burned a good bit in that. Well, there was potential for them to get burned in that opener against the Chiefs. The Chiefs just ended up like pounding the run game against them. But Demarcus Robinson had the opportunity for that touchdown. So I like Hollywood better there. Although I don't think Corey Davis is a bad start.
Yeah, I agree. Corey Davis is not a bad start, but they're playing Jacksonville. And we've said it once, we've said it 1,000 times. That's Derrick Henry territory. Derrick Henry just owns Jacksonville. And so Tannehill may not need, this may be a 10 pass, a 8 for 10 game for Ryan Tannehill. And one of the things that really I loved while watching Lamar Jackson was he was so efficient and so accurate. 20 of 25. He like surgically picked apart Cleveland And even though Mark Andrews is definitely the red zone target, and he's definitely, in terms of touchdowns, he's definitely the better play there. I mean, Hollywood got 100 yards on 5 catches. I think he's still definitely the number one wide receiver over Willie Snead in Baltimore. I would go Baltimore. I would go Hollywood Brown here.
I do think Willie Snead is a sneaky waiver wire guy. When we've seen for 2 years, maybe 3, we've seen Jackson sort of like to throw to Willie, and Willie has never been a terrible player going all the way back to the Saints when he was, had Drew Brees he had a sort of a looked his way in the red zone quite a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's going to be sort of like that. Well, I started to say maybe a little bit sort of like the Bears offense was last year, or the Titans offense was last year, where I think
the Bears offense meaning ineffective.
Well, meaning I think it could be a situation where they've just got like one clear, well, I guess that's not exactly true because Mark Andrews is really, kind of he and Hollywood will be the 2 targets there. But I'm thinking just in terms of wide receivers where there's one clear wide receiver and everybody else sort of gets, passes sprinkled in. So I think sometimes some of those other Baltimore guys like Snead or maybe Boykin or someone can be a good DFS play, but it would be tough for me to start him up in a season-long league.
Okay, we've got probably just 1 or 2 more. One maybe. We got Thomas H saying Cam at Seattle or Josh Allen. So mini Cam or maybe major Cam at Miami. Coin flip? I think it's a coin flip, but what do you guys think?
I like Josh Allen actually here a lot. I think he definitely didn't have the greatest game in NFL history last week, but he had a good game. I think it was 2 or 3 touchdowns, I think. And I mean, that was going up against the Jets defense, who's, I don't know, mediocre at best. Now you're playing Miami, and we just saw Cam Newton run all over them. So I like Josh Allen here. I also like Diggs and Brown, even John Brown as a flex play, maybe. I like Buffalo this week, just in general. So Seattle's defense isn't as good as they have been over the last 3 years, but playing Seattle is always difficult. So I'd go Josh Allen here.
Yeah, I would too. It was hard not to like Cam. I started Cam in a couple of leagues. It was hard not to like him at home against Miami. And I think he'll have probably a fairly safe floor, as long as he's healthy, and they really kind of rely on that rushing. But this week, Seattle on the road. I know Seattle's defense is not what it used to be, and they don't have the 12th man up there.
Yeah.
But considering the matchup, Josh Allen at Miami, I definitely give the edge there. I would start Allen.
Well, we've got a couple more questions. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting question. Sukan says, I'm not sure what you get, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sukan, and pronouncing your name, by the way. I'm not sure if you guys talked about Joe Burrow yet. We did, but barely touched on it yet.
Yeah.
Do you think that we should target him for QB1 rest of the season, or forget? He says not target, forget him for QB1 at all.
No, set and forget.
Set and forget. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you guys got to read for me. I'm blind. So it's interesting how many running yards he's getting. However, it's hard to tell. His line is the worst problem. He doesn't look terrible. His line looks terrible right now. How many points did he get you for this? Have you guys looked and see?
He had like 23, 24, 24.5.
That's good.
24.5.
For fantasy, that's solid.
Yeah. So for me, he's not quite at set it and forget it. But if you look at like how that Cincinnati offense is probably going to have to operate, I do like him, and I mean, going forward, his schedule is not terrible. The tough thing I think is I could play him most of the season, and then I don't think I would want to play him that Week 15 game in the playoffs against Pittsburgh at home. But apart from that, and of course, he plays them again in the season. He plays Baltimore during the season. But there's some solid. He's got Jacksonville, he's got Cleveland again, Tennessee, the Giants, the Dolphins. He's definitely somebody with the way he's running and how much they may have to throw and all the weapons they have in that offense that I'll probably be looking to put on my bench in some leagues as a second quarterback.
Yeah, for me, I don't think he's a set it and forget it for the rest of the season, I wouldn't say. But I think he's got some really nice matchups. There's some matchups that really scare me too. He dodges a bullet in fantasy because he gets Baltimore week 17 also. So he only has to play him once, so that's nice. But he's still got to get Baltimore. He's got Pittsburgh twice. The way Washington's defensive line looks, that worries me a little bit as well. But he's also got a couple of nice matchups later in the year. New York, Miami, Dallas. That's probably going to be a 3-week stretch where he is going to be a beautiful stardom. So I don't think he's a set it and forget it quite yet because his schedule's kind of 50-50. But I think he's got definite potential as a solid quarterback one, but his offensive line has got to improve if he's a set it and forget it for me.
It's interesting. So Sukan says, Sukan C. I like that name, the way it flows. Sukan C. I'm saying it right. At least I'm saying something right today. He said he got 30
6-point touchdown
because it's a 6-point touchdown league.
Nice.
That's kind of. I think he's gonna get more touchdowns, and he gets so much on the ground. Put him in and worry about some other area. Worry about your wide receivers. Ben says Stafford or Tannehill. Oof. Streaming QB is so difficult for me. I always end up picking the wrong one.
I feel that.
Gonna lean on your choice this week, guys. Any advice? Oof. What do you guys think?
I need a minute on this one to think about it.
I'll just say this. I took Stafford. I took Stafford in my $100 league, one of my $100 leagues, and I actually played Cam over him last week. And I am really considering dropping Stafford to the waiver wire and maybe picking up somebody like what's his name we were just talking about? Joe Burrow. Because Stafford is just going to be, he's never been a high fantasy score except for last year. He came on real strong towards the middle of the year, but he had his full complement of receivers and he was perfectly healthy and he threw more than he had ever thrown in his career. I don't know. He does not seem like somebody. I don't like either Stafford or Tannehill here. I would go with Joe Burrow over both of them, but I want to know what you guys think.
Well, he can't put Joe Burrow in this week.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So we're going to have to remove Joe Burrow from the equation. I kind of agree with you. I don't really love either one. You have to go back a while. I was looking to see, because I remember I think I had Stafford. I played Stafford, some last year, and he did well in those 8 games, but he did not really do well in the game at Green Bay. I think he had 260 something yards and no touchdowns. You have to go back a while, a few years, to really find where he did well in Green Bay. Typically he's giving you like 260 yards passing and a couple of touchdowns. So there's just not a lot there. The fact that he's missing Kenny Golladay, I think maybe later in the season he could, end up being a solid, guy to rotate in at the position. But without Golladay, that kind of kills his value for me, unless he's up against just a terrible defense at home or something. So I don't know what the other options are on the waiver wire, but yeah, out of those two, I would be inclined to go Tannehill, because for as much as we, talk about Derrick Henry destroying the the Jaguars,
Mhm.
that's not a guarantee that's how the game script's going to go. Maybe Jacksonville decides to try to stop him, or it could be a case where he runs for a ton of yards, but
Mhm.
then at the goal line they do some trickery and Tannehill runs a couple in or throws it or whatever. So I would go Tannehill here if you don't have another potential option on the waiver wire. I would stay away from Stafford.
For me, which really bums me out that Galladay got injured, because I got Stafford in a couple leagues. I would try to target like Stafford and Roethlisberger is what I tried to target. That didn't work out great, unfortunately. But I like Stafford as a player, but Green Bay, he's never been great. And Tannehill, he was able to play against Jacksonville. He was fortunate enough to play against Jacksonville one time last year, and he threw for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, which, I mean, that's a good game. And Ben's down here saying maybe even Trubisky. I don't know how long the Trubisky magic is going to last. I mean, we can talk about that a little bit, but I like Tannehill. Jacksonville, in the one place, especially now that they've given away a lot of people, they're especially weak on the back line as well. If anything on their defense is good, it's their front seven. Their back line is atrocious. And even though he doesn't have A.J. Brown, Tannehill could even run in a touchdown. So out of those two, I'd go Tannehill.
I like Trubisky this week. I think he's got. I mean, we still got what's his name, Robinson, and he's got so many great targets. He looks a little bit like he's been unleashed as far as being able to run.
I understand what you're saying, but that still cracks me up to hear you say that. Like, I think because the way it comes across is like, I think really like the problem with Mitch Trubisky is just that he's been getting his raw ability has just been getting held back to this point, and now that they've taken the the leash off, he is just gonna run wild. I don't think it's quite the case there. I know what you mean, but yeah, I get what you're saying. It was just funny the way you said that.
I think he's the biscuit, but I do think that he gets a lot of his fantasy points when he has gone off fantasy points wise. It's been through his legs. Well, that's not true. It's been a combination. Like the years or the games that he's gone off, he's had like 5 touchdowns and what is it like? He's gotten several. Almost 30 yards on the ground, something like that, in some of these big games. That's a nice floor.
Yeah, and the Giants don't scare me. I don't know. I know I recommended Trubisky last week. I don't know how much I would want to continue to tempt fate, because I mean, even last week, he had 243 or 242 passing yards. It was, he was living really off of those touchdowns. He had, let's see, what did he have rushing? He had 26 yards. So he added a little bit there. If you're going to give him a shot, I mean, there are some opportunities coming up here early in the season that, especially if you're in a 2 quarterback league or a deep league where there's not a lot available. They get the Giants this week, then he's at Atlanta. And then, he's got some other matchups coming up like Carolina. So him or Tannehill, that one is almost a coin flip for me.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were.
Nah, I'm basically done. That's that.
Okay, I see AJ over there. He's writhing.
Why is it Trubisky can only play good for 1 quarter? Do you guys remember last year when he threw for 3 touchdowns to Taylor Gabriel in the same quarter against Washington? Man, I don't know what it is. I think he's definitely an interesting play this week against the Giants. If he's going to do well, it's definitely going to happen in these next weeks, because the second half of the season, I mean, he's got some actually really good matchups. The Bears got a nice schedule this year, if I'm being entirely honest. Like, this is our year to go 10-6. I hate the fact that I have to say that, but I think he's definitely
10-6.
I think it's actually.
Dare to dream.
I think it's an interesting play. He does have a lot of not great defensive backs that he's playing in the future, but yeah, I think I'd probably go Tannehill maybe instead, because I'm the guy who likes to be safe. But if I know Ben, I know you said a couple episodes ago you're a risk taker, and Trubisky against the Giants is you could have a worse matchup than that.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of good or bad defenses, Ray Gibson wants to know what's the best streaming defense this week. Do you guys have any good ones? I think Tampa Bay is out there on most leagues.
Really?
I think,
Yeah.
and I would smash some Tampa Bay this week against Carolina. That defense looked stout last week, and they were up against the high-powered Saints. Not the now the only caveat with that is that unsweetened tea himself, can't remember his real name. What's the quarterback's name there?
Tom Brady?
No, Teddy. Yeah. Bridgewater, or tepid water. He doesn't throw. He's very careful with his throws, so you might not get a lot of pick sixes to really have a big day with Tampa. What do you guys think? What are some good defenses out there that you see on the waiver wire?
Arizona, for me, is one of them. They get Washington, which is always a pretty nice matchup, and this is the team that held the 49ers team to 20 points. Granted, they had no wide receivers, but then again, the Redskins don't really have an offensive line. So I think Arizona could be an interesting play this week. Tennessee is interesting to me. I think that's high upside against Jacksonville, but I mean, Minshew picked apart the Colts defense and went 19 for 20, so that's definitely a risk. So I think probably Arizona is maybe to me the best waiver wire pickup out there, because I'm looking at other stuff, not Philly, not the Giants, even Seattle. I'm worried that maybe Cam rushes in a couple touchdowns. So I think Arizona is probably my best streaming defense this week.
Yeah, just the two you guys mentioned, Tampa and Arizona, are probably my picks.
Yep.
What was that? I missed
Tampa.
that.
Yeah, I said just the guys, the ones you guys mentioned, Tampa and Arizona. That would be my picks too.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm having audio problems. What was that last thing? I missed it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Tampa,
Okay.
right?
Tampa and Arizona. Yeah, just the ones you guys mentioned.
What do you guys think of? I've seen a lot of the Titans on the waiver wire for some reason. Is it because they're playing Jacksonville? Is it because Jacksonville looks like more of a high-powered offense than people originally thought?
I think to me it's because Minshew went 19 for 20 against Indy, and Indy was supposed to be a possibly top 10 defense this year. So it's just the Jacksonville's offense. It's not necessarily garbage time. Their offense is keeping them in there. And I mean, Tennessee looked fine against Denver, but in terms of points where you're looking for sacks, interceptions, turnovers, they were good statistically. Like, they didn't let Denver get very far down the field, but in terms of turnovers, they didn't really force many. I think they're a sneaky play for later, but not this week.
Yeah, I that's kind of the problem is I think they're a pretty good real life defense.
Yeah.
If Jadeveon Clowney and the rest of that pass rush really starts to come on, then maybe they could be a good fantasy defense later on in the season. But yeah, the fact that they didn't really do anything. I mean, they had they had one fumble recovery, but 0 sacks. No interceptions. The 0 sacks thing is really kind of worrisome for right now. So, they're at home, but again, how much of a difference does playing at home make for a lot of teams this season in terms of disrupting, having a defense or having a crowd that disrupts the opposing team's offense. So Jacksonville looked a little bit better. Jacksonville I think this is their first year under, isn't it their first year under Jay Gruden? Is their
Yes,
offense,
it
as their
is. Yes.
offensive, as their OC. So, we talk about that some, we talk about that more during our off-season podcasts of how there are so many moving parts to NFL teams in fantasy. And you look at stuff like, oh, who's this player? How good is he? But then you've got to look at the offense. You've got to look at the offensive system. You've got to look at who they're playing. And so, maybe it turns out that we underrated, Jacksonville, what they could do with Gruden. I mean, like I thought that Minshew could be a top 12, maybe a top 10 quarterback just based on like garbage points, and then the funny part from that was that it was completely the opposite in week one, where he had a good day. He had 20.8 points. I mean, that's solid for a quarterback. But he only had 173 yards, and he got most of his points off those 3 touchdowns just from being so efficient, and they were playing ahead. So you don't know exactly how it's going to go, but all things considered, like Tennessee's not like a super attractive option for me right now for all those reasons.
You know who I think is going to be the defense to have is Seattle.
Really?
I like
Jamal
Seattle.
Adams, you guys are talking about sacks. Jamal Adams was basically, usually Seattle is not a big rushing team, but with Jamal Adams, they're using him. He had nobody stopping him last week.
Mm-hmm.
And just sack. Who did they play?
At Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, and he was just taking Matt Ryan down left and right. I think they could be a sneaky best this rest of the season. I probably need to look at their schedule, but I think for this week they could be raw for some good fantasy points. Seattle.
I agree. And as soon as they traded for Adams, that was a team that I started to take in best ball leagues as a second or third defense. Because safety, like if you have a good safety, that can make such a huge difference. I mean, Ed Reed made such a huge difference in Baltimore. Troy Polamalu in Pittsburgh, and it seems like we've kind of gotten away from the era of these sort of star safeties. But I think that could make a huge difference for them because they already had a pretty good defense, and their schedule is not intimidating for the most part. They've got New England this week. It's hard to say.
I can see Cam holding onto the ball too long.
I could see Cam holding on to the ball too long. And then the week after that, they've got Dallas. You never know with Dallas, though. Dallas, like those away games, Dak has just imploded in some of those. Then they've got at Miami and Minnesota. And then later on in the season is where it starts getting really attractive from weeks 13, really maybe through 16, but at least through 15. Because 13, they get the Giants, 14 is the Jets, 15 is Washington, and then the Rams, again, Jared Goff, you never know what you're going to get out of Jared Goff week to week. I agree with you. I think Seattle could end up being Seattle could come out of the season as like a top 2 or 3 defense, I think.
Fantasy defense in particular.
Fantasy defense, right.
Because I think in real life they let a lot get through.
Yeah.
They're not totally sinking. I'm not really that worried about them as far as a shutdown defense, but for fantasy, I see them getting a lot. And sometimes the fantasy defense they're the ones that have really good players and not the best real life defenses because they're always going for the big play and not just holding the line.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you hold another team to 10 points, but you don't come out with any, real sacks or turnovers, then that's not such a great fantasy line. But, you can give up 17, 20, you can give up 20 points. And if you have some turnovers, a pick 6 sacks, then that's a nice stat line for a fantasy defense.
Okay, well, we talked a lot about defense. Some good stuff. I think it's important if you have defenses in your fantasy lineup. Let's get the best one in there. Okay, so Sukan says
Ooh.
drop Austin Hooper for Jimmy Graham. I just saw somebody what, by the way, what is the deal with always getting notifications about people dropping stuff?
Yeah, I just got that too.
I don't care. You probably just got the one from me, right? From Bigley. Picked up
Yeah.
Seattle.
Oh, I haven't been getting that. Is it a private league thing or
It's
That may be.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
maybe
Yeah.
there must be some setting in your
Yeah.
in your league
team
because I
settings.
haven't gotten any kind of notifications about teams dropping a player.
I'm used to it from SleeperBot because SleeperBot does the same thing. They give you a notification anytime somebody makes a waiver wire move. But
Oh.
I'm just not used to. I have 17 teams. I don't need,
I
every
couldn't do
time
that.
somebody picks up Herndon, I get a notification. No.
My phone would just be continually going off. I couldn't do that. Yeah.
All right. So Sukan says
that's
drop
funny.
Austin Hooper for Jimmy Graham. I
I'd
wouldn't
do it.
do that. You would?
I would just as an interesting this is his tight end too. He's got Darren
Oh, yeah.
Waller. So
Yeah.
that's the reason why I'm saying yeah to this, because Jimmy Graham kind of under the radar picked up like 8, I think 8, 7 or 8 targets against Detroit. And most of those were end zone targets. None of
That's
those are
true.
really deep balls. So I
He's
think
a red zone guy.
yeah, exactly. He's an interesting flex play, and that's kind of how he's been used. Like originally in New Orleans, he was just throw it wherever, Jimmy will catch it 60 yards downfield. But nowadays this dude is like 7 feet tall and is bigger than anybody else on the field. We'll put him in the corner of the end zone. He did the same thing at Seattle. So I think he's an interesting number 2. I think that's worth a pickup. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, depending if there's anything else, I think I would prefer like if a Logan Thomas was out there, maybe someone like him. I don't think there's a huge difference between him and Jimmy Graham. Neither of those offenses are the best. Both are, have sort of suspect running games. Yeah, depending on who else is out there, I'd be okay with that move. I like Austin Hooper so far through 2 games is looking like a fantasy bust, which I mean, I didn't take him in any leagues. There might have been a league or two where I, drafted him as my last player for $1 in a buck auction, in an auction draft or something. I don't remember, but I don't have him. If I did, I didn't hold him. So I just didn't have a lot of faith that that he was going to be able to get much in that run heavy Cleveland offense that also has to keep OBJ happy, is going to be funneling targets to Jarvis Landry. And through 2 games, it's been even worse than I thought it was going to be. So right now, Austin Hooper's looking like someone you can just easily drop. And actually, to what we were talking about before, I looked on my waiver wires and 2 people have already dropped Jarvis Landry. So,
wow.
So
Nice.
I may pick him up. So, but we'll see. I mean, I've got so many rosters that are just like, yeah.
Yeah. And even with this right here, keep in mind, Jimmy Graham, like we always joked about the Bears having 10 tight ends, but really the second guy, Cole Kmet, was not used in the passing game at all with Chicago. Like it was the Jimmy Graham show when it came to tight end compared to Austin Hooper. If David Njoku comes back, which the guy can't stay healthy, but when he does, realize he's the one who got the touchdown. I think it was the touchdown, right? Who's the one who got the touchdown against Baltimore? So that really worries me for Hooper, is that if Njoku's there, he's going to be actually splitting time. So
I think Njoku's on the IR though.
Is he? I thought he just had a knee injury. Oh, you're right. But it's 3 weeks now. Injury reserve is 3 weeks.
I know
now,
it's only 3 weeks. Yeah. But I mean, Njoku is another guy who just cannot stay healthy and doesn't seem to be a real trusted factor on their team anymore. But I think you're right. Hooper's not. It's just hard after watching the game. I was a Hooper denier for all of the offseason. And then I watched him play yesterday and I thought, this dude, I had never actually seen him play.
Hmm.
And I don't watch a lot of Falcons games, so which I probably should because I keep getting stung by these Falcon players, and I will more because I got Ridley. But that's to say that Hooper's a big athletic dude. I didn't realize how much of a sweet little target he would be if he could start gelling. Although look who's throwing, so I don't know. I would go for Jimmy Graham. Yes, Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham. I've always been a Jimmy Graham enthusiast. Too bad he got hurt, his patella or whatever. Oh wow, we've got Ben just lavishing the praise. Thank you, Ben. We love having you on the listener league. We love having you as a listener. So I hope you're getting some good advice. I think sometimes when you get three people with varying advice, it can be a little confusing, but he likes it.
Yeah,
So
thanks, man. And Sukhan too. He's here too, man.
all right,
He's liked and subscribed. Thanks, man.
I mean, the nice thing is, like, I think, like Ben points out, with us going into, the in-depth analysis, is someone can see the reasons for why we think this and basically make their own pick, and which is what people need to do. Because one of the funniest things to see, if you follow Brad Evans, who used to work for Yahoo Fantasy and now, I don't know, I think he's maybe serious, or I don't know, he might be doing his own thing. Anyway, one thing that he always does is, like, he'll retweet just guys just tearing into him for telling him to play so-and-so and then it not working out well. And which is just kind of hilarious to me, like, you're supposed to have this crystal ball. How could you, I mean, that's how you have to approach fantasy. Is you don't just blindly put in whoever someone tells you to. Is, you go based off, you want to get other people's opinions and hear people's reasoning and then make your own, own decision. So
it's a long season, and as I love to quote Sigmund Bloom from the football guys, he always says, at any point in the season, you're probably going to be right and wrong depending on what point of the season you're in. There's many seasons in a NFL football season. Right. So yeah, I mean, I had to remind myself of that with Galladay, because I'm thinking I wanted to just give up, right? Galladay's down. I don't know what to do with Thomas in that same league, but I had to remind myself, it's a long season. We're just on week 2. Calm down.
Yeah.
I was telling myself, I was like, all your Thomas hate, because I was like really getting down on myself. I was like, you hated Thomas. Why did you get him? And I said, all your Thomas hate is going to be super right the first two weeks and super wrong the rest of the season. So don't go either way extreme on that. Well, we got some more questions popping up. Thomas H is back with a hot question. Is Minnesota going to bounce back and do and have a good game versus Indy? I think you're more likely to see Indy bounce back, to be honest with you. As much as I would love to say, speaking of Galladay, and as much as I would love to say that Minnesota, not Galladay, over there with the Lions and some of these teams that I would like to, Minnesota being in the same, what do you call it, region as my
division,
same division as my Packers. As much as I'd like to say that they are through, I'm sure they are going to have great games. I just think that Indiana, the rumors of their demise is much over. What is the phrase?
Over exaggerated.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be, and I'll let J Rod talk about this, but I think they're not as bad as they were that first week. Let's calm down, relax, as my man would say.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's much more likely that Indy does better in game 2 than Minnesota.
Mm.
Minnesota, I think it's easy to like start thinking back to some of the defenses that they've had in the past with the Williams wall and with Xavier Rhodes, who is now actually on the Colts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's really. I guess the best reason you would have to start them would be, that Phillip Rivers can be a turnover machine, So even though the Colts, I think, are going to look better and do better this week, I mean, that's just kind of who Phillip Rivers is. And we could very easily find out that, last year was nothing's really changed from last year. This year, having a better offensive line, is not really making a difference. And although the Colts really didn't, I don't think, pass protect that well anyway, but he's just a gunslinger and he's going to throw interceptions. So I guess that would be the best reason to think that they might bounce back. But I would look for some other option other than Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota to me has always kind of felt like Seattle light to me. Like they were always known as they're like really good, but not quite as good as Seattle. They've got a quietly had always had a good front seven, and kind of comparatively to Tennessee, I felt like they were always good in real life. Like they wouldn't let people score touchdowns, but turnovers sometimes were kind of iffy. There was a time when Harrison Smith and Xavier Rhodes are probably the scariest safety cornerback combo in the league. But Everson Griffin's gone. Xavier Rhodes, like you said, is an Indy. The team's kind of getting up there in age. Danielle Hunter's injured. I mean, they got Yannick Ngakoue, which is really, really good. But after watching Mike Hughes and Holton Hill just get torched by Devontae Adams last week, it's a risk play for sure. Phillip Rivers didn't give me a lot of hope because I took him as a backup in some of my leagues. He didn't give me a lot of hope after his 2-interception performance, but if there's someone like Arizona, like I would go Arizona this week over Minnesota. I'd rather take them against Washington. We talked about streaming defenses. Minnesota just was really iffy. They were good on the run. They held Aaron Jones to only 66 yards, but they just got torched by the Packers, and that does not make me happy.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I do think that one thing to look at, Xavier Rhodes may be, I don't know. He did so bad last year. He's getting so old, and some of the fall off. He may do better for Minnesota.
Yeah,
on the Colts.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's kind of funny because it's kind of funny to see like the hype around like, oh, we got Xavier Rhodes, from players, especially from like casual fans, who, just, it's almost like with all-star games, like MLB all-star games where like Jeter or somebody was still just getting voted in, like even when they're not even like one of the top 5 or maybe top 10 at their position. They're just kind of living off of a name.
That 30% fan vote really helps in the end game.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. The Colts tend to seem to struggle. I mean, this is off the topic of defenses, but the Colts have never been able to quite get that secondary figured out. They've been pretty good at like linebacker, and they're getting better up front a little bit, but I don't know. They just never seem to like. They drafted Rock Ya-Sin, who's got one of the best names in the NFL, but they drafted him a couple years ago, and we'll see what he turns into. Malik Hooker, the safety, has been overrated. They took him with a first-round pick, so kind of shifting to the Colts defense. Yeah, I think I think that Minnesota's offense is more likely maybe to bounce back than the defense, unless, like I said, this is just like a classic bad Phillip Rivers game where he's just, throwing pick sixes.
Yeah. Indianapolis really hasn't had the best back line since Vontae Davis left. Like the few years he was good. That was a nice time.
Amen to that. And Sukasi says amen to that as he says, thanks. Really appreciate advice. He liked and subscribed. So that's a good opportunity to remind everybody to look down at that sparkling like button, whether you are on Facebook or probably on YouTube. Click that little thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe to us, you'll also be able to see when we come on. Sometimes we're a little late. Usually we're Tuesdays and Tuesdays at what are we doing now? We're
8
doing
Central,
9.
9 Eastern.
Okay, yeah, 8 Central, 9 Eastern, and on Saturdays usually around 10:30 Central, 11 Central, somewhere in there, depending on if we all get up.
I just realized we don't shill much for viewers, actually.
Yeah, we don't.
Subscribers. Yeah.
And I
wonder-
want to say, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say, I wonder how much it really makes a difference. You know, like it's funny to see some of the YouTube stuff out there. Like there's a comedian out there named Cody Ko on YouTube that I like. That he a bunch of people have just shredded this girl for doing this, or this woman. But she went on just this tear about people not supporting her Patreon, and it was just the most awkward, like
I remember that.
tone deaf thing where she's just like, it's just $5. There is no excuse for not paying me. Like it just came across like a parody, but she was mad. She was 100% serious.
Cringe.
It was super cringe. Yeah. So and you get some people that just hammer away at it, you know.
Yeah.
So the best one I saw though was a channel where the guy at the end was talking about how a lot of people had been watching his videos and just hadn't subscribed yet, and he's like, and so he's like, I'm looking at you, Jared, and then I'm like, we're like breaking fourth wall here, and then he started naming off other names, and so then I'm like, oh, okay, but it's like for a second there, it just freaked me out. It was like you know, the Matrix was speaking to me, you know. So.
Oh, well, thank you, Sokan C. And we will see you next time. Tuesday night will be here. Saturday.
Yep.
Also,
Good luck,
okay,
man.
guys.
Uh-oh.
Speaking of breaking the fourth wall, there is an extra dynamic to having a listener league, and we love having Battle Royale in the listener league. Real quick, he wanted to mention, where is it?
Yep, you passed it.
I passed it.
Yep, it's right there. Yep, I had
Hit
it.
it again. Okay.
Here we go.
Also, good week last week. So I faced him, Mr. Slanting Chubb, or whatever his name, god awful name is. I faced him last week, and I was sure I was going to be. It was one of those relish moments.
Wait, what?
He came back and whooped me in the last. Huh?
Oh, in another league?
In our listener
In
league.
the listener league.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We
Me
played.
and you
in a
played.
different one.
So
Right.
yeah, so I got beat
Yeah.
by Jared, and I got beat by
Oh.
Battle Royale last week, and both of them came down to Monday night, and both of them came down to a decent performance. He had Jonnu Smith, who got just enough points to beat me.
He got that touchdown.
We were talking. Judah and I were talking about that, and Judah was like, "No, it's done. It's a done deal." But really, like, I think the only other ball that Jonnu caught after he got within a few points of him was that touchdown. And so if he hadn't had that, Judah would have had.
So he passed it to Jonnu, and Jonnu caught it, but he couldn't pass it to AJ to Brown. Anyway, so. But it's so on top of that, I just got one of those stupid notifications said that Ben picked up Mitchell Trubisky. So he might have gone with our he made his own decision based on our analysis. But so that's on you. You want to go with the biscuit? I think it's a good idea. But he's the biscuit. So so Battle Royale wants to know, pick a flex, half PPR, Montgomery, Moss, Chark. Montgomery's interesting, right? I mean, I don't think he's very good for PPR at all, but he could be an interesting flavor this week. Speaking of Trubisky, Moss has been like, And Chark didn't do that great last week either, but I think he's going to do better.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, not a super clear winner there. Yeah, I think Moss. I think that Bills Dolphins game will probably be there'll be more passing. I think from the Bills, but last week Cam had a couple of touchdowns. Sony Michel had a touchdown. So I think even if Josh Allen, vultures a couple of touchdowns, Moss could still come up with one. Yeah, Chark, the thing that worried me in that game is he just, he didn't really have the volume, and hopefully that changes, because otherwise that's really going to change his season outlook. I think just not having any faith in the Giants defense, based on volume and based on no faith in the Giants defense, I would go with Montgomery. There's probably not going to be a ton of situations where I recommend Montgomery this season unless the Bears offense turns out to be better than what I think it will be. But this is one of them for me. So I would go Montgomery.
See, I got messed up in one of my leagues because a certain league manager has 2 flex spots, but you can only put a running back in one of those flex spots. So that messed me up this week. But I'm messing. I would Chark had what I would like to call a Chris Carson game now, where he did good, but it's not how you would expect him to do well, with 3 catches last week and a touchdown. And that was really confusing to me. Zach Moss is probably the one out of here that I wouldn't go for sure, just because Bill's offense, there's a whole bunch of guys out there. Yeah, I'd probably go Montgomery. This is probably like the one game I agree with Jared that I would go Montgomery. We're playing the Giants. And I mean, he got 64 yards with a messed up groin last week. So he's a week healthy now. He's coming back. I think that better workload. I think he'll have a easier time against the Giants this week. Chark, it's either Montgomery or Chark for me, but I'll go Montgomery.
How many yards did Montgomery get?
He got 64.
I feel like every Montgomery game is like 64 rushing yards.
It is.
I just want to say that's I think it's a great name for at least a song. 64 yards on a messed up groin.
That's almost more of like a band name.
That is.
It's like it's like Parks and Recreation. That's the new band name for Chris Pratt's band.
64 yards on a messed up groin.
Yeah, like going back, I'm just looking back to like last season. I guess it's just like maybe I was probably paying more attention to Montgomery at the beginning of last season, and so his first 2 outings were, well, let's see. No, the first one was that horrible offensive game where the Bears lost 10-3 against the Packers.
That was terrible.
But then after that, it was 62 rushing yards and 67 rushing yards, which would average out to like 64.5 rushing yards. So yeah, I just always feel like he is in the ballpark of like 65 rushing yards or so.
Yeah. I got to write that now.
64 yards. Here you go. 64 yards on a messed up groin. I got so far holding my loins.
Okay, maybe we should.
That's enough. That's enough.
All right, so let's move on. Oh, so Ben says he is all in on Trubisky. I think if we're gonna be honest,
if it doesn't work.
I don't think the other guys were too high on Trubisky. I was the one who said I think he could do really well. So, but I think you guys said, you guys said it was interesting. It was upside, right? And so I would smash it. I'm all in on him too. Do it. And by all in on him, I mean DFS. I'm not gonna put.
I don't know. With him and Tannehill, I think it's close. It's close there. Yeah. I don't know. I think Tannehill might be the safer play with that. But and Tannehill's another one who I feel like his stat line is just almost the same. Like he had 249 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. And I feel like just every Ryan Tannehill game is almost that stat line. It's like So I don't know. I think at home he's a pretty safe play. He's probably safer than Trubisky, but maybe Trubisky's got more upside because I think Tannehill might be limited by just what they do with Derrick Henry.
Okay, well, we have one last question. A large question. It's covering up. Jared is so large.
No, no.
Last question I have. Jamison Crowder. He's hiding. Jamison Crowder in another money league. My receivers are Ridley, Allen Robinson, Chark. Would you drop Crowder?
No.
Or hold?
Do not drop Crowder.
Options are Mike Williams, Preston Williams, and Rager. I'll let you guys take this so that we.
Go ahead. You have a strong opinion there.
I do. I would not drop Crowder here. Darnold doesn't throw to anyone else, and that's why I'm big, or not big, but like think Herndon's an interesting play this week. You've got a really nice core in Ridley, Robinson, and especially if Chark goes back to normal with his seven catches or targets, then that's a really good trio. I wouldn't drop Crowder. I mean, Mike Williams is interesting, but he's always kind of been a Willie Snead type guy where he'll get 4 catches and an occasional touchdown. Preston Williams is also interesting, but if Devontae Parker gets back to being healthy, who knows where that could go, and Fitzpatrick is on and off. And, I mean, Jalen Reagor, I know he's your guy, but I think I would keep Crowder just because there's no one else for Darnold to go to, so I would hang on to him.
Yeah, no, I would too. Mike Williams, I don't know. That Chargers offense scares me. Preston Williams, I think, has a tough schedule, and they may be looking at a quarterback change pretty soon. They are going to be looking at a quarterback change at some point during the season, so I don't know how that's going to change the dynamic. I really just don't like their schedule that much. And then Rager, I like him, but it's kind of a tough spot because then he got hurt right as the season was started. He did end up playing. Alshon Jeffrey is going to be coming back. Goddard's for however long he'll get back at some point, and then we'll see how long he lasts. I think Rager could be a still in play for maybe the second half of the season or something, but Crowder, when he's in there, is the guy right now for Sam Darnold. 13 targets, 7 receptions, 115 yards, a touchdown, and he's going to be the guy that they're just throwing to underneath a good bit there. So, I like Crowder.
Yeah, especially when you bring up even with Rager, so I just got Goddard off of the waiver wire somewhere, 20 minutes ago up here because someone had put him there. So it's Philly's looking more to their tight ends than they are to their wide receivers. So that's a good point on Rager.
Well, so the other thing is that Crowder's injured with a really bad hammy. Can you put him in your IR? I don't think it's bad to drop him, honestly. I know you keep saying who else. You've said that a lot today, AJ. Who else do they have?
Look, I just don't like the Jets, period. I have no Le'Veon, no Darnold, no Crowder. I just don't like the Jets.
I don't know. I think it's fine to drop Crowder just because I don't see a lot of people going out and picking up a Jets who's got a big O next to his name. I just don't.
Okay.
I don't know. Would you guys rush to pick him up if you saw him on the waiver wire?
He's only available in one league, and I can't really. As soon as they put Michael Thomas, assuming he misses the game, then I could pick Crowder up. But there's really nobody else I could drop for him. But in most leagues, I would try to pick him up and stash him.
Okay.
Same.
Well, guys, it's been over 2 hours. It's time to get on with our Saturdays, although this has been fun, and really appreciate all the comments and interaction. Feel free to go hit that sparkling, sweet little like button. Look down there. It's sparkling right now. Now that you're looking at it, hit it. All right. So, do you guys have anything else to say before we play the outro?
That's it for me.
Don't think so. This is probably the only time I'm ever going to get to say this, but the Falcons jerseys did not look as bad as I thought it was. As thought they were going to look. So,
What'd you think, Jared?
I actually had forgotten about that. I didn't even think about it. But yeah, they didn't stand out as being bad to me. So
yeah, unlike the Rams,
yeah,
I hated.
So what you guys are telling me is that their uniforms are not a factor and should never have been talked about them. Okay, interesting.
No, because the Rams, like he said, the Rams legitimately were that bad.
Were they?
They're not white. They're bone, and they look terrible. It looks like unwashed, or you put them in the washing machine for 20 minutes and then yanked them out.
They do. They almost look like yeah, they look like what you would see in a laundry detergent commercial as what would be like the off-brand and how it didn't do a good job of getting your whites clean. That's exactly what they look like. It not only did that, but then it also like distorted your color. So that's what the Rams jerseys should be used for. That should be a one and done. They should do that for one season and then go back to the old ones.
Tide can't fix these jerseys. I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't even notice. You guys are really.
I did notice them. Like the Falcons. The Falcons, I didn't really pay attention to, so they didn't look bad or anything to me. Which I think I said like upon even back when we first saw them. Like once I saw the promo photos, I'm like, okay, these look okay in the promo photos. They just look terrible initially in the leaked photos, and so the real thing's probably going to be kind of somewhere in between. So I didn't hate the Falcons once we saw them, but the Rams really are that bad.
Especially compared to those like electric blue helmets. It's like you've got these super bright, shining helmets, and then these dull. I don't know. That's what I'm just gonna call them now. Jared brought that up. Tide commercial-esque jerseys.
Yeah, Tide commercial with like IKEA colors, IKEA furniture colors, because it is, or Best Buy because it is like that, bright yellow and that electric blue. It looks just like Best Buy and IKEA.
All right, well there you have it, guys. Look at those jerseys. That'll be something fun as you watch the games this week. Look for those terrible Rams jerseys. Otherwise, we will see you guys on the comment sections, what have you. And that does it. You guys got anything else?
Nope. Good luck this weekend.
Yeah, good luck, everyone.
Good luck to everyone, because no one except Scarabi Giraffe or Scarab Giraffe. I like to think of it as Scarabi Giraffe. That sounds funny to me. It's probably like Scarab Giraffe or something, but that's the only person that I can't wish luck to this week, because he's playing me. So
good luck, Judah. I've got you this week, so good luck.
Good luck, brother. You're gonna need it. Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, if AJ wins, there's now sort of like an established precedent for, if you beat Judah, like, coming in with a little bit of more flair. So I'll be on the lookout for that.
We'll see how this year goes. All right, guys.
Good luck with James Conner, 64 yards on a messed up groin.